You can knock out nearly every Pokemon with a level 1 Rattata, as long as your opponent doesn't know what they're doing. Today, I'll show you how the Fear strategy works, what Pokemon can use it, and how you can counter it. Fear is an acronym that originally stood for... yeah, this is a family-friendly channel. Nowadays, it generally stands for the 4 original components of the strategy: Focus Sash, Endeavor, Attack, Quick, and Rattata. Kind of a janky acronym, but that's okay. Most of those components have alternatives, but we'll get into those later. Let's focus on the standard variant for now. This strategy was discovered in 2007, shortly after the release of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and it was posted on the game's GameFAQs message board. It was popularized thanks to a video by Maryland, who's still active on YouTube to this day. In the first competitive battle he did in Gen 4, he used a level 1 Rattata to knock out a level 100 Empoleon, winning him the battle. F stands for Focus Sash, a new held item introduced in Diamond and Pearl. As long as the Pokemon holding it has full health, it can't be one-shot by an attack. A hit that would normally knock it out will activate the Focus Sash, and it'll survive on 1 HP. E is for Endeavor, a unique move introduced in Generation 3. If the user has more HP than the target, the move will fail. But if the user has less health, Endeavor will lower the target's HP to match theirs. A low-level Pokemon holding a Focus Sash will be brought to 1 HP with virtually any attack, so Endeavor can bring your opponent down to 1 health as well. And A is for Quick Attack. Whatever man, why not? It's a priority attack, so it'll go before most other moves. If your opponent doesn't have a priority move of their own, Quick Attack will go first and knock them out, since all attacks are guaranteed to do at least 1 damage if they hit. The opponent is already at 1 HP, so that's all you need. R is for Rattata, although various other Pokemon can be used as well. To ensure Focus Sash activates, it's ideal to use the lowest level Pokemon you can, and luckily it's possible to have a level 1 Rattata with everything you need. Rattata can be born already knowing Quick Attack, but you have to make sure that when you're breeding for it, both of its parents know the move, otherwise it won't be passed down. Endeavor can be passed down the same way, but depending on what game you're playing, you might also be able to take Rattata to a move tutor. In any case, that's how you obtain a level 1 Rattata with the required moves. When you put it all together, here's what the Fear strategy ideally looks like. Bring Rattata into battle either by leading off with it, or switching it in after one of your other Pokemon faints. Choose Endeavor as your move on Rattata's first turn. When your opponent attacks, you'll be brought down to 1 health with your Focus Sash. Since level 1 Pokemon are incredibly weak, nearly every Pokemon will be able to bring it down to its Sash, especially in competitive play, where everything is level 50 or 100. Then Endeavor brings your opponent down to 1 HP as well. Then you can finish them off with Quick Attack on the second turn. This strategy is effective against AI trainers in-game, as well as inexperienced human players. Now let's take a look at some alternatives. Quick Attack can be replaced with any other priority attack, aside from Fake Out and First Impression. These 2 moves only work on the first turn the user's in battle, and we need priority on the second turn. Some moves you can use include Mach Punch, Accelerock, and Aqua Jet. There's an ambulance outside my house. I'm just gonna roll with it. As long as a Pokemon can learn Endeavor and at least 1 priority move, they can be used for Fear. You could use Phanpy with Ice Shard, Corsola with Sucker Punch, Passimian with Feint, and so on and so on. Just keep in mind that if you use Sucker Punch, the move fails if your opponent decides not to attack. Here's a full list of Pokemon that can learn Endeavor and a priority move. If certain weather conditions are active, they can replace the priority move. At the end of each turn, Sand and Hail do chip damage to every Pokemon that isn't immune to them, knocking them out if they only have 1 HP left. The ability Sturdy can replace the Focus Sash, but only from Gen 5 onwards. When it was introduced in Gen 3, it just made you immune to one-hit KO moves like Fissure and Sheer Cold. But in Gen 5, it was buffed to act like a built-in Focus Sash. Sturdy Pokemon can survive moves that would otherwise be one-shots with 1 HP, the same way Focus Sash holders can. Sturdy is actually better for this strategy, because it can activate multiple times. When a Focus Sash activates, it's consumed and can't be used a second time, but if a Sturdy Pokemon heals itself to full, the ability can go off again. Since they don't need a Focus Sash, they can hold other items to help them heal up. As an example, if the sand is up, a low-level Aron can use Sturdy and Endeavor to bring one Pokemon down to 1 health, use a Shell Bell to heal itself back up to full, then let the sand knock its opponent out. Then it can rinse and repeat for the next Pokemon. Aron is Steel Rock type, so it's not affected by sand itself. You could also use a level 2 Probopass, which is also a Steel Rock type with Sturdy. Probopass can't learn Endeavor though, so it would use Pain Split to repeatedly heal itself up to full instead, re-enabling Sturdy over and over and over. By using Pain Split enough times, your opponent's HP will eventually become low enough for the sand to take it out. Then you can do it again on the next Pokemon. Pain Split maxes out at 32 power points, so you can potentially do this several times in one match. A similar strategy involves a level 1 Cleffa, which has the ability Magic Guard. That protects it from all forms of indirect damage, including sand and hail. Starting in Gen 4, you can pair Cleffa with a Bombus Note to set the hail up, then use Focus Sash and Endeavor to take your opponent down to 1 health. Then the Hail knocks them out at the end of the turn. You can even take this a step further, and do the same thing with its evolutions Clefairy and Clefable. If all goes right, you can knock out 3 Pokemon for free. Solosis and Duosion took that idea to the next level in Gen 5. Not only could they do the same Magic Guard Hail strategy, but they could also set up Trick Room. Togedemaru has its own version of Fear, but it comes with a pretty major caveat. It can't learn any priority attacks, so its priority move of choice is Spiky Shield. It's a souped up Protect clone, and if the opposing Pokemon makes contact with the shield, they'll take damage, knocking them out if they're at 1 HP. Why does that say "thems" out in my script? Anyway, most contact moves are physical though, so most special attackers can hit the shield safely without taking damage. In other words, this version of Fear straight up doesn't work on half the Pokemon in the game. But on the plus side, Togedemaru has Sturdy, so it can hold a Shell Bell to potentially pull it off more than once. As long as your opponent has fallen asleep at their desk. For more videos like this, subscribe to MEPlaysGames and consider becoming a channel member. Fear can be a quick and clean way to take out a Pokemon, but there are a lot of ways to counter it, and if you're playing against a real human, there's a good chance they'll know how to handle it. One simple way to beat Fear is with a Pokemon that's immune to at least one part of the strategy. Endeavor and Quick Attack are both normal type moves, so Ghost types completely counter nearly every variation of the strategy. Some of the only Pokemon that can get around it are Kangaskhan and Tailo. They have the ability Scrappy, which allows them to hit Ghost types with normal and fighting moves. Nearly every other variation crashes and burns against a Shuppet. The only other exception is Probopass's Pain Split Sand strategy. For whatever reason, Ghost types aren't immune to this move, despite Pain Split being normal type. A few moves negate the effects of held items, namely Embargo, which prevents one target from using its item for 5 turns, and Magic Room, which does the same for every Pokemon on the field. These moves will invalidate any Fear user's Focus Sash, as well as Aron and Togedemaru's Shell Bell. And now there's an ice cream truck outside my house, fantastic! Are we gonna get the trifecta? Is there gonna be a plane flying over in 5 minutes? I can't wait. The Focus Sash only works if a Pokemon is brought straight from full health to none with one attack. So if you can find a way to deal some chip damage as they come in, their Sash will break and they'll be knocked out by your attack. The most common way to do that is with entry hazards, namely Spikes and Stealth Rock. They deal damage to most Pokemon as they switch in, effectively disabling Focus Sashes and Sturdy. Then you can use pretty much any move to knock them out without taking any damage. Another option is simply using a faster priority move. Most of them have +1 priority, so if you have your own +1 priority move, you can use it to knock out the Fear Pokemon, because you're basically guaranteed to be faster than them. Keep in mind that some Fear Pokemon can get around that with a +2 priority move, like Faint Bounsweet or Extreme Speed Togekiss. +2 moves go before +1 moves, so you can't counter them with Quick Attack or Aqua Jet or what have you. You can also KO them with certain status conditions or weathers. If Sand or Hail is active and the Fear Pokemon isn't immune to it, they'll faint after using Endeavor and taking weather damage. Most status conditions work too, so if you get a burn from Flamethrower or poison from Sludge Wave, they'll faint at the end of the turn. You can also use Toxic Spikes to poison them as they switch in. Freeze, Paralysis, and Sleep don't knock them out right away, but you'll have a chance to KO them on the second turn if you inflict one of them, since they might prevent the priority move from coming out. You can also confuse them, which can make them faint by hitting themselves. Fear also most likely won't work against a Pokemon that's holding a healing item, like Leftovers, Black Sludge, or various berries. Since most Fear Pokemon are low levels, they won't be able to KO their level 100 opponents if they have more than 1 HP. Multi-hit moves aren't the most common thing in the universe, but they counter Fear as well, and there's a decent amount of them out there. If you're running Triple Axle, Icicle Spear, Rock Blast, or Bullet Seed, the first hit will bring Rattata down to its Focus Sash, and the second hit will knock it out. Endeavor makes contact, so any Pokemon holding a Rocky Helmet will knock out a Fear user. And that's a relevant item, so there are plenty of Pokemon that might be holding one. In the same vein, Flame Body and Poison Point can inflict Burn and Poison respectively, knocking out the Fear Pokemon before they can use the priority move. You can also simply attack the Fear Pokemon, let them use Endeavor, then switch out when they go for their priority move. The game tells you what level your opponent's Pokemon are, so Fear isn't going to catch you off guard. Quick Attack will likely deal 1 damage when you switch in, then you can knock it out with most other attacks. The Aron and Probopass Sandstorm strategies are countered by a boatload of Pokemon. Ground, Rock, and Steel types are immune to Sand, and they can't learn any priority moves to get around that. And there are a lot of strong Sand immune Pokemon. Garchomp, Excadrill, Scizor, Dialga, Genesect, Groudon, the list goes on. Ground types are common because on top of their Sand immunity, they're immune to Electric type moves, and in turn they're the only type that's super effective against Electric. Steel types are common as well thanks to how many resistances they have. Ground and Steel types also resist Stealth Rock, so most teams are going to have a Ground or Steel type that can beat a level 1 Aron. The Cleffa Solosis Hail strategy is countered by Ice types for the same reason. Weather strats can be beaten by any Pokemon with some other immunity to weather as well, like the held item Safety Goggles or a variety of abilities. And any Sand or Hail ability will provide an immunity as well. On top of that, starting in Gen 6, weather is no longer permanent. It'll go away after 5 turns, or 8 turns if the weather setter holds a specific item. Hail was also removed from the game entirely recently. Snow replaced it in Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, and it doesn't deal chip damage, so that removes one method for using the Fear strategy. There are other ways to counter Fear, but I think you get the idea by this point. Not every team will have a Ghost type, and not every team will have priority, but there are so many ways to beat Fear, just about every competent team will have at least one method to deal with it. And even if they didn't, most versions of it will only knock out one Pokemon, so at best it turns a 6v6 game into a 5v5. As soon as the Fear Pokemon is down to 1 HP, they're usually toast. So as you can see, Fear is an interesting strategy on paper, but in practice it's not that effective against real people. Any competitive player worth their salt knows about Fear, and they know how to deal with it. But you can use it to cheese a lot of AI trainers in-game, since most of them aren't programmed to counter Fear. And I mean, you could also probably use it to beat your 6-year-old cousin Timmy, who's never played Pokemon before. Besides its battle prowess, or lack thereof, Fear can also be used to catch Pokemon, as long as you leave out the priority move at the end. Using level 1 Pokemon with Endeavor can make catching easier, because you can bring the Pokemon you want down to low health without knocking it out, kind of like how the move False Swipe works. By using level 1 Cottony with Prankster, you can follow up Endeavor with a priority Thunder Wave, which paralyzes the wild Pokemon and makes catching it even easier. And that's all I got on Fear, fellas. It's not a very good strategy, but it was fun to look into. I knew the Rattata version and some of the simpler alternatives, but I was surprised to learn how far the rabbit hole goes in my research. Stay tuned to MEPlaysGames for more videos like this, and I'll see you all in the next one. Good night, fellas, sleep well.